In this Sikha, the Rebbe is going to be exploring the difference between the generations from Adam to Noach and then the generations from Noach till Avraham. We have a Mishna in Pirkei Avos that tells us that there were 10 generations from Noach to Avraham. This is to let us know how patient Hashem is, because here we had all of these generations making Hashem angry, till finally Avraham Avinu comes along and he gets the reward for all of these generations. The first question that Rebbe asks is, if these are generations that are making Hashem angry, then how is it that Avraham Avinu is getting their reward? Which reward are we talking about? Furthermore, let's have a look in the Mishnah just before this. The Mishnah described 10 generations from Adam till Noach, also telling us how much patience Hashem has. Here you had these generations making Hashem so angry until finally he brings the mabul upon them. But in this case, it does not say about anyone getting their reward, and the simple reason for that would be because if they're making Hashem angry, clearly they don't deserve any reward. So why is it by the 10 generations from Noach to Avraham we're saying Avraham Avinu gets their reward? So there are Mefarshim that say that every single person has a designated portion in Gan Eden, and if they don't get it, somebody else might have the schus and get this person's portion. But if that's the case, the question will become, what about the 10 generations between Adam and Noach? If they didn't deserve it, then Noach should have gotten their portion in Gan Eden. So some Mefarshim will explain that Noach didn't daven for his generation. He wasn't makarev these people, didn't bring them closer to Hashem to make them act in the proper way. And this is why he doesn't get their reward. Where Avraham Avinu, as we know, influenced the people in his generation, brought them closer to Hashem, so he deserves to get their reward. The question, however, will still remain. And if we do say that, yes, it's true that Noach didn't deserve to get the reward, but if everyone does have a portion in Gan Eden, then what happens to the portion of those 10 generations? Certainly we're not going to say that there's just some portion in Gan Eden that's remaining completely useless. So we must say that somehow those generations didn't deserve any reward at all because of the way they angered Hashem, and we need to understand how are those first 10 generations different to the next 10 generations where we say they do have a portion and Avraham is going to get it. Another question that Rebbe asks is, what exactly is the Mishnah even teaching us about Hashem being an erech apayim, how much patience Hashem has, where clearly we have a pasuk that describes Hashem as being erech apayim, and as Rashi tells us over there, it means both for tzaddikim and for rishoyim. Now we might say that what the Mishnah is trying to tell us is to what extent Hashem's patience is up until 10 generations. But we still need to understand what is the significance exactly of this idea of 10 generations. In order to understand all of this, the Rebbe has a look at the order of the Mishnahs in that Perek of Pirkei Avos, in the 5th Perek of Pirkei Avos. And what happens in the Perek is, the first Mishnah is describing how Hashem created the world with the 10 sayings with 10 utterances. The next thing the Mishnah is discussing is these 10 generations that we just described, from Adam to Noach, from Noach to Avraham. And the question is, why is this Mishnah coming following that first Mishnah? Seemingly, if it's based just on chronological, the time order of the way things happen, then there's a Mishnah further in Pirkei Avos which described the 10 things that Hashem created on the Friday of creation, Bein Hashmashos. Seemingly that should have been just following the Mishnah about the 10 Ma'amoros, just before describing the generations which would happen after that Friday. So the Rebbe says the explanation is, in that previous Mishnah of Ba'asara Ma'amoros Nivra Ha'olam, the Mishnah explains that why are we being told that the world was created with 10 sayings? This is in order that the Rishoyim, who are destroying a world that Hashem created with 10 sayings, they are going to be punished, and to give reward to the tzaddikim that mekayim minesoilim, that sustain the world, that keep the world going, that Hashem had created with those 10 sayings. Says the Rebbe, it's in connection to these two categories of people, the Rishoyim that destroy the world, and the tzaddikim that sustain the world. It's in continuation to these two things that the Mishnah tells us the same two ideas about the two sets of 10 generations. The first set of 10 generations from Adam till Noach, these are like the Rishoyim that the Mishnah is speaking about previously, that destroy the world. And because they are Rishoyim that destroy the world, so Hashem also brings a mabul on them and destroys them. However, we now have another set of 10 generations between Noach and Avraham, which over here, Avraham Avinu was able to be Mekayim. Avraham Avinu was able to sustain the world. Avraham Avinu was able to give in that even into the previous generations, there should be something positive about them, and therefore, as opposed to the first 10 generations, which Hashem destroys completely, and they have no reward, here we're saying no. Avraham Avinu gave ikiyum into those generations, and therefore there is reward, and he's the one that's going to get it. What is the difference between these two sets of 10 generations? So the Rebbe says, we know, for example, by wars, when Yidden fought wars, there were certain things that they had to destroy completely, certain things they were able to take as booty, as spoils. And the same thing is true the way we deal the war, the battle with the evil, the klipos in the world. There are certain things that are completely ra, completely bad, have no good. And those are the things that, like the mabul, we need to destroy completely. That's the only way to deal with them. The Rebbe gives an example what the Alter Rebbe says about the Parah Aduma. It needed to be burnt because it represents the absolute evil, although the ash remaining of it is something that could be transformed because it just represents the general koyach hamisava, the desire that a person has, which could be used for good things. So we have, again, certain things that need to be destroyed completely, and then there are certain negative things that even though we don't see the positivity, the godly spark inside of them, but they do have a good spark, and what we need to do is allow it to exist, transform it from bad to good, and utilizing it in a proper way. Says the Rebbe, this is the difference between the two sets of 10 generations. The first 10 generations were absolutely evil. They were destroying the world, and therefore they needed to be wiped away completely. Whereas the 10 generations between Noach and Avraham was the kind of bad that was able to be transformed, and therefore Avraham Avinu, through his avodah, he is being mekayim the world. He's able to give some sort of positivity into the world, transforming these things, and therefore he gets the reward also for those 10 generations. Why 10 specifically? Says the Rebbe, we know that the idea of 10 generally represents the shleimus, a full, complete idea encompassing all the different levels. This is both true in the side of Kedusha as well as in the side of Klippa. And therefore Hashem waits, is patient up until 10 generations. That means to say, waiting until the full measure of all 10 levels are completed, and then if everything is completely evil, then that obviously has to be dealt with in the proper way. The Rebbe now applies this in a person on his own personal level. A person is also like an olam katan, and a person also has different stages and different periods. The Rebbe says you can have a situation where a person was for 10 days, again the number 10, which represents completely involved in something negative. And sometimes a person may think, well, life is still going on fine, life is still going on normal, even though I completed my measure of chas v'shalom, doing bad things, and perhaps, the Eibishter is just going to allow me to keep on going. So we say no. You have to realize that there comes a time that this is over, and we need to really deal with it and get rid of all the bad. And this itself is going to be in two ways. Number one, the negative we completely have to eradicate, we completely have to destroy. But then that's not enough, because even if we stopped doing the negativity and we eradicated the negativity, we also didn't utilize that time properly for positive things. A person was given his days in life to do avodas Hashem in a proper way. Therefore, now comes another set of avodas Hashem, like the second 10 generations. You have to give a kiyum, you have to give positivity into those previous days. That means you need to take whatever is possible from the negative, transforming it into positive, transforming the darkness into light, and in that way get the reward also for all of the previous days and avodas.